with Ryan Blaine. Ryan is the president and CEO of Aztalan Engineering over in Lake Mills, Wisconsin, just down the road. Aztalan Engineering, they make precision parts globally for about, what, 40 years?
Yeah,
so
42 years.
Yeah. So we're basically just gonna, a lot of this could be very casual. We're gonna open it up to a lot of questions. We're gonna talk about Ryan's experience with automation, implementing his first automated cell, some of the fears he might have had, the reasons why he automated. And again, feel free to just pop in and ask any questions. So Aztalan, Ryan purchased one of our tender systems that you see out there almost a year ago to date. It's pretty much at our last open house, which was, yeah, just about a year ago. So it took us a couple months to implement it, install it. We put it on a Mazak machine. This isn't going to be a sales pitch about CNC Solutions. It's more giving you guys a comfort level. If you have questions about what it takes to automate, feel free to chime in and ask Ryan questions. So I'm not going to talk a lot here. I'll let Ryan run, but I've got a few questions to ask Ryan. So yeah, again, feel free to jump in. Can you tell us a little bit about your company and,
Sure.
and what you guys do?
Sure. So like Randy said, we're a precision manufacturing facility just down there on Lake Mills. We specialize a lot in medical device components that go into several different lines, whether it be with humans or animals or anything else that go from there. Other industries that we serve are hydraulics, oil and gas, and water filtration and robotic type of things. So in addition to the machining that we do a lot of precision cleaning, assembly work, brazing, and some off the cuff, sometimes CNC Solution stuff. A lot of our core business is the medical side of things. We've been doing a lot of work in the medical area for probably the bulk of our career, those 40 plus years. We have deal mainly in aluminum, brass, stainless steels, and then some exotics, titanium, and different things like that. So wide variety of machining, milling, turning, Swiss turning, and everything else goes in.
Are most of the audience in here into the manufacturing, cutting chips, CNC type machining, fabricating? Is there anything that's assembly related? A little bit of everything? Okay. So one of the things that we see as an integrator is when people come to us and they want to talk about automation, they start investigating it. It's typically reactive to a problem that they're having, right? And everybody knows that there's a lot of employees out there and finding people is not an issue these days, right? So I guess, Ryan, what's one of the reasons that you decided to start investigating automation? Was it reactive to a problem, or do you want to just?
Sure, you hit it on the head. It was definitely employee based. So we have an aging workforce, and backfilling them is a problem. I think a lot of people are feeling that same thing. That next generation really isn't there. So we knew that at some point we would have to look to automation to look to kind of backfill and go from there. So in addition to replacing our staff, our aging staff, as we go from there, we also needed to remain a little bit more competitive in the industry. And having one person in front of a machine, you know, is the old way of quoting business, and that just doesn't fly anymore. So we're looking for ways to allow us to maximize the limited staff that we have, getting them to run 2-3 different machines at the same time, and kind of guiding and looking at over that. You know, for us, the CNC programmer, a real top-notch machinist, a guy that can pretty much handle everything. They're unicorns out there right now, and once you get one, you hold on to it and you go from there. And to try to mimic and guide them is tough, but what we're trying to do is just get them in charge of different areas and cells, and then allow a beginner type of a machinist to come back behind them and change out parts or load and unload stations and do some minor checkings and things like that. So that's kind of why we went with automation. Yeah.
So what was some of the barriers, or your barriers to getting into automation? Very few companies have programming.
Yep. That was one, definitely. We did not have a large base. A lot of our staff really are lifelong employees with us, so they only knew what was inside of our walls, and we didn't have any automation, so it was completely foreign for us. Coming to things like this and learning a little bit more about it, getting 1 or 2 guys excited about it that wanted to learn, and having them dive into it, kind of went from there. But for us, you know, another big concern was the programming side of it, sure, and using it, but we didn't have super high volume parts. Okay, so a big run for us is 2,500 to maybe we'll do 15,000 annually. We're not doing 100,000 of the same part where you can just sit there and pump them out and run from there. So we're like, how can we use automation on some of these smaller runs and still get the biggest bang for the buck when we don't have a staff that is extremely knowledgeable into it and stuff. You know, just come in and again, learning a little bit on how easy it is to kind of train the arm to do different things and set some different things up was a big help. The whole build process for us, I mean, we're very close in proximities, which helped, but the door is always open. I think we came in 2 or 3 different times with our quality side of things, with the engineering side of things, and just kind of ramped up and got some a good comfort level with that. And the installation process, those three plus weeks, we learned a lot, and just the ability to be able to kind of move things around and get.
So do you have somebody sent for program training? Or
Nope, it's just all been done with it during the training, the week training that we've got with the install. We just kind of picked up and run from there. We've been able to, we put one legacy part on there. It now has a few different variations, but it's all very similar. And we had to make some minor tweaks, and we wanted to bring in some smaller diameter parts. And the initial training, it was a lot easier than what we had thought. And the guys, we basically put 2 different engineers on it, and then a lead machinist in that cell. And all 3 of them just really gravitated to it and picked it up, and now they're off and running and able to go from there. So we're actually getting close to transitioning into adding. So the parts that we have on there now are round, and we're actually looking at putting on a square part on there, which would be, you know, completely foreign form. But the guys are really excited about doing it. The in-process inspection is, that's a good question.
That kind of leads into one of the questions I have, Kevin. You know, in-process gauging, and I guess I'll just quick jump ahead here. When it comes to automation, you know, obviously there's in-process gauging. You have an operator come over, he's gauging the part, maybe making offsets in the machine. Where we find automation to be successful is when the customer has a very sound process. They've been making these parts for quite a while. They have the process dialed in. They know what their tool life is. And then we, on the other side of the fence, is we get customers that they want to look at automating because they want to band-aid a poor process, right? And they think that the robot is the grand solution. Well, we don't like to automate those systems until the process is sound and in place. I have a customer right now that's looking at automating. He said, Randy, we chose you. We're going to buy your system, but we're going to hold off a little bit because we need to take care of our process. Meaning their work holding chuck on a lathe. I think they have a Mori lathe, and they're having some run out or something. So they want to address those issues before we automate. So that is a good way to look at it. We've walked away from orders. Ron and I walked away from an order not too long ago where a customer had a really poor process and was just fluctuating, and it was all over the place. Well, they thought that if they put a robot on, it's going to solve those issues. Well, no, you're better off having a person there, wave his little magic wand, his tribal knowledge, and tweaking in those parts. Automation is not going to resolve that issue. So I guess that kind of leads into my next question for Ryan was, I'm going to jump around here a little bit. Again, I'm just going to keep this casual. Going back to one of the questions, Kevin basically talking about like buy-in from your employees. And I'm sure the answer, I didn't know that Aztalan was an ESOP company. It's an employee-owned company. We find ourselves very successful there as well because the employees who are owners of the company, they don't want to bring in new employees, right? Let's just let more money out of their pocket. So they'd rather automate than to share their paycheck with somebody else. So I guess my question was going to be, did you have concern with the buy-in from your employees? How did they receive it? Were you afraid of any employee retention issues? I don't know if you want to, sure. I think you covered a lot of that, but go ahead.
There's definitely some skepticism when it came to bringing in a robot. They basically said, well, is this replacing me? So even though it was, you know, being an ESOP and looking to do things more efficiently, the fear that the guys on the floor had more so than anything else was, am I going to lose my job because you get this up and running? And we just kept reassuring them that this allows us to do more with what we have and kind of run from there. So we took a cell that was running, you know, a legacy product for us. So we had the rigidity of it and the knowledge of it. It was a very sound process, but we had to be at that door every 2.5 minutes. And that was always tough to do. We were seeing a lot more downtime than anything else. So being able to put it on a tower and just let it auto feed for, you know, it take up 4 to 6 hours. I think we're up about 6 hours worth of runtime. Just allowed him to transition and go from running one machine and really well and one machine very poorly to running, we got him running a cell with 3 different machines in there. And instead of him kind of constantly questioning, you know, how am I going to get orders out, he really kind of said, holy cow, this simplified my life, and it didn't justify or remove him from a position or anything else like that. So
Ryan's been real open and nice about allowing me to bring customers in there that are interested in our tender system. And it's kind of amazing. The machinist operator gentleman that's in charge of this cell, you bring customers in there and he's just like the biggest. I want to hire him as our sales guy.
He does a really good
He's
job.
really proud of that cell and he really bought into it. This is a different set of eyes looking at it. And it's like he took ownership in that. And if you're considering automating and you're having some of the same questions that Ryan had about, you know, are the employees going to buy into this? Are they going to get worried that their job's going away? What I've seen the trend, and I think anybody from CNC Solutions can back me up on this, is once that automation is in there, they buy in and they take ownership of it. It's making their life easier. Some companies I go into and I look at, first go in there and they have an automation project they want me to look at and see what it's going to cost and quote. They're like around the operator, shh, I don't want the operator to know that we're going to automate this. I don't think I've ever had an automated system where they've gotten rid of an employee. They redeploy them into an easier job. So if there's any concerns amongst yourselves on that, there's ways to address it. And I would say 100% of the time, people buy into it. So,
Ryan, I have a question.
Yeah.
Kevin's here. You said there's a legacy product, with well-established processes in place, which made an easy transition to automate. But Kevin's question, he asked about the gauging process. Yeah. Gauging. So were you checking parts? You said you had a 2.5 minute cycle time?
On this.
Did he have time to even check parts?
You know, he did because so it's a multi-phase process on how these go in, and he was this last process that we automated was the roughing side of things. So it was a quick process, not a lot of in-process checks with that, but where all the time was spent gauging and checking the part was on a secondary machine that did the finish cuts, okay? And that needs to be 100% inspected. This is a rotary valve that's going into an anesthesia machine. We're splitting millions, you know, gas is running in here. There's people's lives get attached to it and everything else like that. You guys want to know if you're going under the knife, everything's good. So we've got a pretty extensive inspection process that has to go out of there that we found was tying up a lot of that operator's time and unable to keep things going. So this really just allowed him to focus back on those inspections by putting the automation in. Yeah, put them more back to the inspection to monitor the process, make sure everything was going good and running from that. There are next steps in the cell. We are talking about looking at ways to bring in a shop grade level CMM where we can take it from the machine and then have the robot put it on the CMM and check it, and then you have your green and go. We're still learning how much of the inspection side of things we could automate from that. So there's different things that we're looking at, but really it freed up to do more of the inspection versus being at the door and changing a part.
I guess this question is more relative to like a contract manufacturer or the job shop type atmosphere, maybe not relative to like the Doosan where you're manufacturing your own product. But the question that I would have is, I was trying to figure out a way to ask this, is when you're going after new work, do you consider knowing in your mind that you may be able to automate the cell that you're quoting on a new part? Maybe it's a new customer. Are you quoting it using manual labor, combination of both? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, we're definitely doing a lot of quoting as far as that goes because we've opened up a lot of capacity. So we are in the process of backfilling a lot of that. And we constantly look at a process and say, is there a machine constraint? Is there a staff constraint? What do we do to look at that? And we constantly keep automation in mind when we're quoting that stuff. So we'll run two different quotes if we have to 100% staff it, and then you look at your efficiencies with vacation, people getting sick, only working, 8 hours a day, that kind of thing. And from there, and then what happens if we automate it, and then how fast of a, look at the difference of that, and then how fast of a payback we could get on something like that if we automate and put that investment in there.
I have a question. So now that you automate, is this one cell?
Yep, this is one cell. Yep.
So have you revisited the overhead cost to operate that cell as a result of price changes?
Yeah, we saw about a 15 to 20% increase in efficiency and profitability in that cell and on that part. It was like I said, it's a very pivotal line for our customer, and they were constantly worried about our capacity and what our output was, and it's not the easiest process to check. So they're like, you're relying on one or two different guys on first and second shift. We've actually been able to scale back and get all of our product done and their demand in one shift, where we were struggling to get it done in two. A lot of times we're working Saturdays and different things like that, putting in the overtime. So by eliminating the overtime and by eliminating, the second shift, we've saved a ton that way. We're actually looking at utilizing the extra time that we had with a sister part that's on that line to fill up the robot to be able to kind of bounce it forth and back and forth that way. Before we were running at 2 shifts with consistent overtime. Right now we're running at 1 shift, and we are ahead of demand with room to breathe, which is not something that we've been able to save. We've been running this for like over 10 years. From that. So it was a high level priority with the customer, and then be able to show them what we've done over the last, well, like you said, it's been just about a year. That the beginning of the year is when we installed it. Yeah, I think, right? So it's been the last 6 months, having them see all the productivity or the gains and everything else like that, and really have this come off of their radar. Radar has been a big plus.
One of the things that we really try to instill is that we don't want you guys to have to call us and spend $145 an hour every time you need a program change, right? So our whole idea is to train the trainer, right? Get a couple key people within the facility, train them so that they can train others as well. We also offer 3-day training courses in this room. We keep it to 6 people, 3 robots. So you do the training, and then you go on the robot and you practice what we preach. So we try to, I guess I'm leading to the point that these guys now are implementing their own product. When Ryan was talking about the square part, they're doing it themselves. They might have a question. Their engineers will call our engineers. They do it over the phone. They're not paying us to go out there every single time to program a new part. And that's really what we want. I mean, Ron and Randy are probably saying, no, we want that cash. But at the end of the day, we really want our customers to be self-sufficient and to call us and knowing that we're here to help. So that's one thing I guess we take pride in. So I guess going on to that point, talking a little bit about the proactive and reactive approach to implementing automation. You talked a little bit about, going after new work and that type of thing. When you purchased the automation from us, let me back up a little bit. We rarely lose orders to competition. We don't lose orders because they don't like our system or our design or our concept. We lose orders because it goes up through the ranks. The engineer starts the project, goes up the ranks, and the CFO looks at it and says, I don't see an ROI on this, right? We need an ROI, return on investment, within 1 year. Well, sometimes it might be 1.1 years, 2-year investment, depending on the size of the project. So when you looked at this, Ryan, can you talk about what your thoughts were on the ROI? Was it based on your piece part cost? Did you capitalize it? Did you build it into your piece part, your customer? Yeah. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
We ended up capitalizing the equipment, but we knew, we looked at a conservative ROI that we didn't think we'd be able to eliminate a whole shift with this, right? We thought if we could just eliminate some of the bumps and bruises in the area, it would be good. It's a legacy part, so any of you guys know those big OEMs, they always want their 3% every year and everything else like that, right? So you can imagine over 10 years, the profit margin on this product really shifted down and from there. But by implementing this, we got that profit margin back, and we originally thought we'd be sitting at about a 24-month ROI on it. Right now, after the first 6 months and the amount of gains and things that we got, we're pretty confident that we'll hit it before 12. So it's not bad.
Yeah, great. All right. Anybody have any questions so far? I've got a couple more here for Ryan, but based on what we talked about, anything? All right. So why did you decide to partner with CNC Solutions other than the sales guy being really awesome?
Well, of course, that was the first one. The process that you guys shared with us and how you would teach us and get us comfortable with everything was a big plus. Knowing that you'd come out and lay out a timeline. These are the things you wanted to learn about the product and the pieces that would go in there. You listen to our engineers and that kind of thing. Just that whole sharing session and how it went down was a big plus. Being right down the road obviously is a nice plus for you guys, for us at least. But the open door concept that you had. You brought us in before we started multiple times during the process, showing us progress in the process, everything else like that. When it was finished, we came in here, we saw a dry run before we interrupted anything on our floor. So gave us a good confidence level as far as that goes. So that was all a big win and a big thing that, that process, we didn't see that from the other vendors that I guess we went through. So it felt like a little bit added touch to go to it to get everybody kind of comfortable with the automation side of things. So
going off of that, one of the key things to success is communication from the customer. We're not successful if a customer gives us a request for quote. They know exactly what they want. They want us to quote a robot system. They send it out to 25 other integrators, and the cheapest guy gets it. We don't like playing in that realm. Where we become successful is the communication with the customer. We don't know your process. We were talking about the lawnmower deck bending. Is that okay if I discuss a little bit? These guys are from across the street, Doosan Bobcat. They make zero turns and a lot of commercial grounds care type product. And so they manufacture lawnmower decks. And how many different parts did you have?
I think we have 15.
Yeah, so we're working with these guys to investigate automation. We're kind of in the infancy of that. And they've been very good at sharing information, getting us parts. We've never bent a lawnmower deck before. We've bent sheet metal. We've bent very similar product, same profiles, but never a lawnmower deck. They have some tribal knowledge of what it takes to process that part through their facility. So they've been very good at sharing some of that with us. Hey, Randy, when you bend this, you're going to have to watch out because the part comes up. You're going to have to hold that press down for 10 minutes. All right, well, my question is, well, can the press hold that sheet metal for 10 minutes? I'm exaggerating here, for 10 minutes without the hydraulics overheating. So these are a lot of the little things that the communication with the customer to us. Same thing with you. I mean, we've got have some conversations on this gentleman, Gary's with Baker Manufacturing over in Evansville. And we're right in the process right now. They just purchased a tender system from us, and we haven't even built it yet. So we're going through the whole kickoff meeting and the process, and they were sharing some of these, tribal knowledge that we didn't know in the beginning. So just my whole point here is to have that transparency of sharing information, letting us know where your challenges are at. And that leads to my point of, if we can get in the beginning of the automation and help walk you guys through that thing, and I'm going back to you just handing me a request for a quote, right? I'm not going to quote it because I don't know all those black magic, the tribal knowledge that it takes to process your parts. So understanding the processing of the parts is important. One of the things that he had brought up, what was your name again? Greg. Yeah, sorry, Greg. One of the things he brought up is their lawnmower decks are short runs. They've got 16 different lawnmower decks, right? If they run 5, we can't spend 3 hours setting up a robot system for the next one, right? And how many times are you doing a changeover a day between decks?
We're probably making 5 or 6 different decks each shift.
Yeah, so 5 or 6 different decks per shift. So if I design my automation system and I know that when they change from this job to the next job, it's going to take them 2 hours, it doesn't pay to automate it, right? So we need to keep that setup times down. I'm kind of rambling on specifics here, but I guess my point for Ryan would be, I guess moving forward, what do you see the future of automation at Aztalan?
We're gonna continue to automate. The tender, the system that we have in right now is great as a stationary unit. The big thing that we're going to look at next, I think, is units that can move around. because we do a lot of short run, types of things, 500 pieces, and then we got to go on to the next thing. That we need to be able to teach a robot to, set up a machine, have the robot load and unload, and then walk away and go to that next setup. So that's going to be kind of our next phases of automation.
Great. I guess that's all I had for specific questions for Ryan, but does anybody have anything for him? Do you guys have any concerns now that you're investigating automation? Doosan, they have a bunch of automatic robotic welding cells from us. Now they're starting to investigate some assembly work, some machine tending work. Do you guys have any questions for Ryan that you may be concerned of before we start implementing over there? Yeah. Don't know what we don't know. Yeah.
So, since you're automated, how was your quality improvement? How much improvement in quality measurement did you have? Did you see since you implemented the process?
As far as our quality goes,
Scrap rate,
in that area, I mean, it was so intense as it was. We haven't seen a huge quality gain on that side of things. There has been, well, I shouldn't say that. Because of the robot, we have a soldering process where we take a Diva disc and a solder disc, and we create that final layer on there. And we were getting some overspill in some of those areas. And what a human would be able to do is knock that off and go from there. Well, we just kind of dealt with that problem forever, right? People would file it off from there. With the robot, if that came out and we had no idea where it was coming and it grabbed on there, it would alarm out. So it allowed us, so that kind of triggered us to improve that process, which now we've got a much better stable process at our solder carousel, and we haven't seen as much fallout or anything else like that's come out of there. I don't have a quantified number for it or a DPM number or anything else like that. It's just stabilized some of the lower level processes. I mean, we're still at the finish cut on this product line. I mean, like I said, it's 100% inspected and gone from there.
But you had mentioned that it actually is giving your operator or cell attendant more time to do gauging.
Yep. Yeah, it has. It really has. So now, he constantly stays there, and that finish cut is also automated. We run about 8 to 12 parts at a time. It's a little bit longer of a cycle, but he's able to really dedicate and stay there where, before he was splitting his time up, or we had to put 2 people in the cell or something like that in order to get the productivity out. So it's allowed him to really focus on it.
You said that you basically reduced your rework downstream.
Correct. Yep.
And you said you also, because of that solder, caused a problem with reworking.
Yep.
Did you guys find that? Or how did that work?
We found it as we were going through.
Was that done intentionally to try to
No, we didn't.
detect it?
No, to be honest with you, I wasn't even aware of it until it got to the point where the robot, all of a sudden the robot was alarming out because it was gripping on this side, and we're like, well, where is that coming from and why is it? Should we have it? It was intermittent. It wasn't something that was constant and in the same spot every time. So it just allowed us to do a process improvement on that down.
That's your first thought as well. It's one of the robot wise.
100%, yeah, and we made the call, and we very easily, quickly could see, well, you're clamping on a little bit bigger of a burr or a slag of solder or something like that, and we're like, okay, well, where'd that come from, and why did it come from it? How come we're not seeing it on every part? And then we find out really quick it's dealing with our pockets on our solder carousel, and all right, and those have been in there for 10 years, and people have just been dealing with it instead of fixing. They've been hand filing it, which is slowing down the process even more, instead of fixing the pocket, which was a 10-minute fix. We throw something on a lathe and you cut a new pocket and away you go. So now we've got a preventative maintenance program on those pockets to ensure that we're able to run and keep those up to speed as well too. So just kind of have a domino effect. You know what I mean?
It's a great example of consistency in automation.
Correct. Yep.
Process. The variability really shines.
Yeah.
So robots can do the same thing over and over and over again at a consistent pace. And a lot of times when we're putting automation in, the customer will see the robot, well, why is that robot not moving faster? It can move a lot faster. We don't need it to. It can actually run a little bit slower because it's consistent compared to an operator. Where an operator is in the bathroom we find a lot of consistency flushes out a lot of variability in process. And we see that a lot with different customers.
Yeah, we don't even run it at 100%. I think we've got it set at like
Yeah.
75 or something like that. And it's
Yeah.
just because you have the time in there, but it's consistent. And,
Yeah,
yep.
when Gary and his crew came in, at it, first thing I thought, let's speed it up to impress these guys, you know, and it's like, we don't have to because it's waiting on the machine cycle time.
Yeah.
And,
Faster you run it, faster it wears out.
yeah, yeah.
Right,
It's like-
that's very, very consider that for design systems.
It's like the old story, Paul Bunyan versus the chainsaw, right? You know? So everybody else have any questions? Good.
You want to wear that soldering machine, or is that something that only came up
It-
after the fact because the guy just did it as a matter of course and nobody did that?
Correct. Yeah, I didn't know about it. Our quality manager didn't know anything about it. Our production supervisor didn't know anything about it. They just knew that every once in a while that operator would go in there and do some hand filing and that kind of thing. And they just did it because it's what you do, right? And run from there. But once that robot couldn't consistently grab on that spot, alarmed out, makes you ask that question, and then you dive into, well, how come? And then you start connecting some of the dots, and you're like, oh, maybe that's why 2 years ago we had this giant, we had a customer issue because of the Diva pads being slipped off and out of relation to each other, and you know, it just kind of triggers some of that stuff, and you start connecting that, and then you figure it, and the light bulb comes on, and you're like, all right, fix those pods, get them better. You know what I mean? They do wear out after time. So
Most of what we do has never been done before. I don't think we've ever done a project that's been an exact duplicate. There's parts of each application that we have experience with and that we've done before. But you know, the lawnmower decks, we've never bent a lawnmower deck on the same exact press brake that they have and the same exact bends, right? So everyone is a little bit different. And I don't think I've ever had a project come through the doors that I've quoted that went perfect according to the quote. There's always those little changes. There's always that little black magic, tribal knowledge that's involved. But you know, not to give you guys a sales pitch on us, but we have a hell of a staff of engineers here, electrical engineers, mechanical engineers. I don't think we've ever not been able to overcome a challenge, you know, halfway through a build, or Ryan comes to us and he sees that problem with the solder, right? Okay, we know it's an issue. We didn't account for that, but we figure out a way to resolve the issue. So I think that's one of the things that I really take pride in our people in our engineering resources. So I guess with that said, if you guys have any questions going forward, we're here. I've got a card. I'll get you a business card. Yeah, or if you have an application you're thinking of, give us a call. We'll come in. We'll take a look at it. If it's not in our wheelhouse, I'm going to tell you, hey, there's companies that are better than us at this. We automate pretty much anything and everything, with the exception of painting, which I'm kind of lying because I got a system out there where we're painting, but there again, we don't understand the customer's paint process. I know I can take a robot, manipulate a gun, I can manipulate the part, but I don't know their mil spec thickness on the paint. I don't know how that paint sprayer is going to work. So really at the end of the day, we rely on the customer to give us a lot of that feedback. And again, coming down to the communication on that is very important. And with that said, I'll say one more thing as to our process. So I met with Ryan. He said, hey, we're thinking about automating this process. We went through the concept stages, the proposal stage, and and that was quite a bit of time, a few months. And then with that said, Ryan decided, yes, I approved it. We're going to go ahead with it. So a purchase order was issued to CNC Solutions. What we do at that point is we sit down as an engineering team internally to CNC Solutions and we review the project. It's kind of an internal kickoff meeting. Then what we do is once we get all on the same page, we meet with the Aztalan Engineering team and we have a kickoff meeting together with them. And that is, okay, what did Randy promise in this quote? I don't agree with, so we all get on the same page. I'm joking a little bit, just to understand everybody's expectations and really what the outcome of the project needs to be. Then we come back home and our guys begin designing concepts. We do robot simulations, verify cycle times. You see the robot move. We do reach studies, payload studies, and just to make sure that the robot is specified correctly. Ryan might come to us and say, in the future, I think we might be implementing a 25-pound part. Well, okay, we quoted you a 10 kilogram payload robot, so we're exceeding the capacity. Is that important to you? Do we need to upsize to a bigger robot? So we work through all of those details. Then our guys come back and we actually do the design. We start designing everything from conveyor stands to the robot end of arm tooling, all the component specifications. Then what we'll do is we'll actually bring the design back to Ryan and his staff. Ryan looks at it and says, well, I don't like the color blue. I want that bracket painted green. I'm simplifying it. So we make those changes. Then we begin the build at our facility. And that consists of ordering the components, start staging those to come in. We start the build process. Our door is always open. Anytime you want to come in and see the progress of your cell, the door's open. You call me, Randy, I'd like to come in tomorrow. No problem. Then once it's up and running to a point of where we can show the performance of the system. In Ryan's case, we did not have the CNC machine here, so we simulated the work holding chuck in his lathe, went through that whole process. They came in, they saw it run, gave it its blessing. Prior to that, we sent an engineer into Aztalan to prep the machine for our automation, meaning the black communication box, right? I call it the black box. So then we pick everything up, we ship it, get everything positioned in place, fasten everything where it needs to be. We send in our electrical engineers, our integration team, and what they'll do is they'll start tying it to the machine tool. Now, in the past, that might have taken a week because you're running, 600 wires to terminal blocks. We use all remote I/O, so we're basically ready when that machine shows up, our system shows up. We're plugging an Ethernet cable in, and now our communication is established. So we're not on your floor for weeks integrating and implementing. I would say our average machine tending install is probably 3 days. Once it's up and running, let me back up a little bit. So once we get the system up and running on the floor, we do a runoff, whatever was agreed upon in negotiating. I think Ryan said, hey, I want you guys here, to run 1,000 parts with no uninterrupted downtime, that type of thing. And once it's installed, we hang around for a few days for, we call it production assistance. In the middle of a cycle, our guy might e-stop it and say, okay, recover it like I showed you to recover it. And so we're very flexible in that process. You might say, hey, I'd like you guys to hang around and train first, second, third shift. So we'll do that. So we kind of have our boilerplate offering to you guys, but you guys might say, hey, this is new. We want you to hang around for a week. So we'll do that. So we're very flexible. We want you guys to be self-sufficient. So when we walk out of the door, that you can call us with any issues, and that we're there to service and support it. So that's kind of the way the whole process works. So if any of you guys have any questions, or if you would like us to come over to your facility, take a look at your application, we'll do that. It's free of charge. I can go in there and say, that application there, based on your feedback, this is probably going to be a $150,000 to $200,000 system, Mr. Customer. Is that within your budget? You see an ROI there? If they say no, well, let's scale it back. Are you okay with maybe semi-automating it, where an operator, instead of going to the cell once every 2 hours, he's over there every 15 minutes populating raw parts, pulling out completed parts? So I can do that pretty quick. So I guess I'd throw that on the table as an offering. Let us know what you need. So thanks again. Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it. You guys free to go.
Thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Thanks, Ryan.
You got it.
No problem.